What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ICNV Driversedition, and today I'm going to address the couple questions that was sent my way from the community. So a lot of people ask me, how do I come up with the topics I choose to talk about? And being completely transparency with you, I would say 60% of the topics I talk about come up from different groups I'm in. So if the conversation catches a lot of, how can I say it, traction, and I engage, and multiple people respond to a message that I put out there, then I may talk about that in a video. So I would say that's about 60% of the videos I make. The other traction comes from people actually reaching out to me in the comments below. I would say that's probably about 18 to 20% of it. Then I would say people actually DMing me or tagging me in posts to see my response. That's probably about, let's just say 7%. And then I'd probably say another 5 would be from actual people I meet out and about, whether it's at a car show, a car event, at a restaurant. Typically, I sit at the bar and a lot of conversations take place, especially when you engage with people and they ask why you're here and you tell them you're looking for a car. You'll be amazed at how much people want to share information about cars, what they believe, and what direction you should go in, although they've never met you. And then I would say the rest just come from topics I want to talk about, generic topics, general things like, what you hate about the car, showcasing the car, what I like about it, things like, just typical videos that you would get, annual reviews, 3-month ownerships, things of that nature. So I would say things that happen in the car community that needs to have a topic addressed. So overall, that's how I get the content I make. So hopefully that answers the question. And then today I want to talk about another interesting conversation, which was brought up multiple times in the past 2 weeks. And I think the best way to say it is how this post put it is the C8 value, is it really less than the C7 value? And that's a question that's been going on quite lately in the community, meaning the Corvette community. So let's talk about it. So if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Sho. This is ICNV Driversedition. We're a car community for car enthusiasts that love to drive cars to make you turn your head, that aren't your everyday people movers. But we're also an interactive car community, which means if you hit me up on any one of my social media platforms or in the comments below, I'll do my best to respond. If the topic you bring up is interesting enough, just like this one, I may even shoot a video on it. Now that we got the formalities out the way, I often tell people that when it comes to Corvettes, it is the car that has carried so much heritage and legacy. And I know people want to say, well, what about the Mustang? But the Mustang doesn't have the same draw as the Corvette community. The Mustang has its own community, and there are people who are Mustang loyalists. But being fully transparent, I'm not heavy in Mustang communities, meaning like groups on Facebook and things of that nature. But from the general car groups that I see, and the general car groups that I'm in, the Corvette gets bashed more than a Mustang ever does. People make fun of the Mustang because most Mustang owners lose control of their cars, trying to do crazy stunts. At least that's what we see, and that becomes the population of the community. But it doesn't get the same criticism as far as values holding up. Should you buy one? Is it a bad car? Things of that nature. Like, the Corvette community gets scrutinized so much. And this is just another one of those angles. And I say that to you to say that now we are comparing the C8 to the C7, which is a very good conversation piece. And I'll tell you why. The C7 to me was the first Corvette to bring in a younger market space. And the main reason for that was the updated technology, or should we say infotainment system put into the car. And a lot of people will say, I don't get it. Well, the C5 was dated, but it was good for its time. The C6, to me, which was the Corvette that really drew me in, But the problem I had with the C6, and which made it hard for me to buy, is that it pretty much ran from 2006 to 2013, a 7-year run. And when you think about that, during that 7-year run, you had Impala, a Malibu, a Monte Carlo, and a Chevy Cobalt, along with the other Chevy platform that had a better infotainment system than that car had. And then when they brought back the Camaro, which also ran overlapping 3 years with the C6, the Camaro produced a little bit better horsepower and it had a much nicer interior. So to me, part of the struggle with the C6 sale, which also made it hard for a lot of people to slide into the C6, is the fact that the infotainment was outdated. So the C7 to me was the first Corvette that took a leap forward to kind of match the technology that was out there in the world with the vehicle that was being offered for sale. Because it seems like if you look at all the Corvettes, meaning like the C4, C5, and C6, their infotainment was always a step behind instead of leading the forefront of what Chevy had to produce. And I say that to you because every platform, C4, C5, and C6, if you actually look at it, when it comes out, within 2 years, Chevy changed the interior of the cars, the normal cars that they were pushing, so it made the Corvette interior outdated. And I feel like that has always been a struggle, along with the performance and what the car is. But to me, that was the struggle of the C6. So when you jump into the C7, I want you to understand the C7 took a huge leap forward with technology. It also brought in more younger buyers. And I'm not going to say the younger buyers that entered the market space were in their 20s, but the younger buyers that entered the market space, if you look at historical data from purchased Corvettes, especially new, the C7 had more 48 to 52-year-old buyers. That was like the market space of that Corvette, whereas historically the Corvettes were 55 and older purchases. So that was transcending. Now the C8 to date has gotten somewhere in the late 30s, like 38 to 40-year-olds is more common with a C8 ownership. And I think that's very huge because that's a huge swing in the market space. And we know there are mid 30-year-olds and a couple 20-year-olds out there with C8s. But just let that sink in. Now to get back on topic, we got to figure out a way to truly evaluate, is the C7 really holding more value than the C8 Corvette? So when I look at the C7 community, I look at what cars are out there to help me kind of get a baseline. And there are over 476 cars nationwide between a base Stingray 1LT and a 3LT that are out there in the market space that you can get for under $40,000 that are being advertised on Auto Trader today. And if you take that one step further, if you drop that down to $37,000, there are still 264 cars that you can get between a base Stingray form of a 1LT to 3LT. And the miles are increasing, but you can still find a decent amount of options out there. And if I was looking, I would say with less than 50,000 miles, you can still find them out there for under 37 grand. So what I'm looking at is what you can get your hands on a car for today. And I would say somewhere under 40,000 would be a good starting point. But there are many C7s being advertised for more money, which also triggers this conversation, because the minute you increase that number to say 45,000 or 50, you start to come into multiple thousands of cars availability for sale. But just because there are thousands available for sale for that price point, does that mean it's actually a good target point for you to purchase a car? And that's the argument when you look at things like this. Because the same way you have people say the C8 Corvette should not be worth more or be selling more than $60,000. And you see 2020s out there for 65 grand, 68,000, but then you see a handful out there for 58,000 or 55. Which one are you targeting? And that's the same thing it comes down to with the C7 platform. So if you want to make this value statement and look at the higher priced C7 Corvettes that are still in the high 40, low 50 range, because I see C7 base models that you can get for 52,000. So if you want to target a $52,000 C7 base model and compare it to a $58,000 C8 base model, then yes, you have an argument. But you're talking about most cases a 3LT C7 versus a 1LT C8. It's not the same animal. But I think that's another part of why this conversation has traction. I think the biggest reason we're having this conversation, or people believe that this conversation is actually a real thing, is because they look at the pricing of the C7 Z06. The C7 Z06 in most cases still sells for a higher price than the base Corvette C8. And because of that, a lot of people are now comparing the performance you can get between the two cars, which is truly understandable because I know I would do the same thing. I often think about the same thing. And the fact that someone actually purchased my C8 for about $65,000 and you can get a C7 Z06 with more power, more performance for $66,000 to $68,000 with less miles, is one of those thought processes in my mind that if it was me on the market space looking, I would have to juggle it back and forth, just being fully transparent. And in my mind, not going to lie to you, because I was there, I probably still would buy the C8 because I just want the newer styling, the newer interior, the new infotainment system. The C8 still moved me over the C7, but I'm not going to lie to you. After owning the C8, I could see going back to C7 Z06 just because I feel like there's more I can do with that car to get performance out of it than I could the C8 platform. But that's just me, depending on what I'm chasing. But I feel like a lot of this conversation is being held because the C7 Z06 appears to be holding value. But if you want to be fully honest about this conversation, I think you have to look at what's out there in the market space. And I say that to you just to give you a prime example, is that I own the C7 Corvette, and my C7 Corvette MSRP was $72,000 and some change. I bought my C7 Corvette, I bought a 2016 in 2016 for $10,000 under MSRP because of the rebates they were offering and the discounts because the cars just were not selling. I think that's an important thing that you have to take in consideration, is that the first year they had to discount the cars so much to even sell them. So I bought my C7 for 62 grand. Looking at a similar C7 today with 30,000 miles, pretty much similar equipped, because I actually was looking, and we could talk about that in a second. But I can get one today for $36,000 with 29,000 miles. So if you look at that, being fully transparent, we're talking about a car that's lost half its value in less than 10 years. And if I look at it realistically, when the C6 was out and the C7 was out, we saw similar market changes, or should I say values, because I was looking at a C6 before I bought my C7, but like I said, the interior was just made it so hard for me to do it that I end up stepping up almost an additional, $32,000 to get into a C7 versus a C6. And I feel like that's the same space you're in today, whereas if you were to step into a new C8 today with the discounts that's out there, you're looking at paying somewhere right around $32,000 more to get into the car. And because that's how I viewed the market space when I was looking to get into my C7, If I keep that same energy, when I look at the C8 platform, they're depreciating about the same. So if you ask me, the market is doing the same thing, but the difference is there's so many versions of the C8 out, and there's so much new technology out with the C8. I feel like we have to go back to the first statement. The C7 was the first step into the future for Corvette, and the C8 has transcended that step into something completely different. At the same time, the C7 was also the last affordable Corvette. And I say affordable because the C7 Corvette, even in the Z06 and ZR1 form, we're talking about a car that reached about $150,000 max with the C7 ZR1. But most C7 Z06s, and I say most, average somewhere right around a $88,000 sticker or MSRP, and there were huge discounts on the car. So you could get into a C7 Z06 brand new somewhere in the $70,000 to $80,000 range. And that's significant because today you can't get into a Z06 without spending $100,000. And most Z06s in the C8 platform average somewhere around 140, 100 to 60 MSRP. And the higher that MSRP goes, the less potential buyers you see for the platform, which means you see more discounts on the higher C06s, which caused this conversation to take place. Because when you look at Z06 to Z06, and that's why I said before, I feel like this conversation is really revolving around the Z06, is that the Z06 for the C8 has been priced so high, it just doesn't make sense, or should I say, it's an easier target to pick out because the amount of buyers willing to spend that type of money just don't exist. Whereas there are more buyers willing to spend the money that you can get your hands on a C7 Z06 today. So I feel like that's why this conversation is gaining a lot of traction. And if you look at it from that point of view, yes, when it comes to Z06s, I do feel like the C7 Z06 is holding its value just a tad bit better because you're looking at $30,000 worth of depreciation in most cases as a maximum range. But realistically, the C8 Z06, because they have $176,000 MSP, $180,000 MSP cars out there that are now on the used market and struggling to sell for $140,000, $150,000 with $30,000 discounts, or should I say lost in value within less than 3 years, I can understand the conversation. But when you go back to the base car to base car, that value, that gap is about the same. So is it really a true statement? I guess it comes down to what part of the conversation you're actually engaging in or what vehicle you're looking at. If you're looking at the base platform for both cars and you just want to get into ownership, it's about the same. If you're looking for more performance out the cars like Z06 to Z06, then yeah, the C7 is doing better. If you're comparing the Grand Sport to the E-Ray, although the performance cannot be compared, but the design concepts and the space they are in the platform, then you probably have an interesting conversation and you have some validity. But the E-Ray is depreciating, I would say, the same as the Grand Sport did. So that's even a harder argument to have. But at least with the E-Ray, you can get more performance than you can get out the Grand Sport. But a lot of people still feel the E-Ray and call it a gimmick because of what it is. But at the end of the day, I think overall, it just depends on what space you're in and what you're looking for. There is still a strong C7 market space out there because a lot of people are upgrading from the C5 and the C6, and the C7 just makes sense, especially for the amount of money they want to spend. But at the same time, if you got a little bit more flexibility in your budget, and the question is, do you get a C7 Z06 or do you get a C8 Stingray? It comes down to, I guess, the same comments that are being put out there. If you're looking for something closer to a supercar, then you would go with the C8. If you're looking for more performance and how you're going to drive it on the highway and things of that nature, you may choose the C7 706. But you can't go wrong in either space if you ask me. That's my thoughts. That's what I shared in the information in the threads. And I really don't know if I really swayed or finalized any topic part or answered this question in a way that is a definite, because I don't think it's a definite answer. But you tell me your thoughts in the comments below. ICNV Driver's Edition. Go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, join the ICNV Driver's Edition community. Like I stated before, we're an interactive community, which means if you hit me up on any one of my social media platforms or in the comments below, I'll do my best to respond. If the topic you bring up is interesting enough, I may even shoot a video on it. But don't forget, we're also a community of car enthusiasts that love to drive cars to make you turn your head that aren't your everyday people movers. If you feel like you're one of those people, go ahead and lock into the channel, join the community. I got more interesting content coming your way, and you don't want to miss out. But don't forget, we were all made in his image and given dominion over the world, which means we weren't just meant to be. So chase your dreams, build your visions, never ever give up, and embrace your own identity. It is okay to be unique. He's not done with you, and he's definitely not done with me. We were all given unique gifts to help us become the best version of us that we can possibly be. So step into your calling and become the blessing to the world that you were meant to be. Just remember to stay humble, stay focused, and stay blessed. And I'll see you in these streets. Peace.